to consider if you're looking at putting big giant tires on your Jeep Gladiator. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Rob Motive JT. And if you're thinking about putting bigger giant tires on your Jeep Gladiator, there are a couple of things to consider. Things that I guess I never really thought about when I jumped into the truck modding world and started adding things like bigger wheels and tires, or at least bigger tires, to my Jeep Gladiator. First of all, you're going to suffer a little bit of ride quality loss. You know, these big giant mud tires, and don't get me wrong, I don't have big giant tires on mine, but big enough that it has made a difference. You know, the ride quality does suffer a little bit. It becomes a little bit rougher. Sometimes with that more aggressive tread, depending on the condition of the roads that you have in your area, it'll even ride the lines, the crevices in the road a little bit. Something I really wasn't expecting. Jars you around a little bit more. You feel more of the bumps and things in the truck. Just an overall reduction in ride quality. Next up is the weight of them. You know, they're heavy. I found that out. It's funny. We put bigger tires on my wife's Jeep Wrangler. And for a while, we had the original spare on the back. It has the back-mounted tire, of course, as a spare. So we decided to go ahead, replace the tires and the wheels, because the setup was horrible, right along with what I said about comfort in the Jeep Gladiator. So we replaced them all. We did go with still a bigger tire, a smaller wheel, but man, they are heavy. I discovered that I couldn't quite lift. This is horrible to admit. I must be getting old and weak, but I couldn't quite lift, balance, and align that spare tire by myself, at least not with going all in or without going all in. You know, really straining my back, everything else, maybe suffering a hernia doing it. I don't know. So very, very heavy. Now, that's going to affect the power of the vehicle as well, particularly any vehicle that you put them on, a truck, a Jeep, whatever. And I feel that just a little bit in the Jeep Gladiator. I mean, the Jeep Gladiator is set up pretty darn well anyway. It's pretty quick, it's really peppy, and certainly enough power for the truck. But I feel it a little bit at takeoff. Feels like I'm pushing or pulling a little bit more weight, and then I feel it when I go to stop. My stopping distance seems to have increased by putting that extra weight in the tires. I have to get on the brake a little bit more than I did before, just to get the truck to stop. Now, a couple other things. One that you have to be concerned with is the size of the tire and your spare. You know, depending on how big you go, you're probably not going to be able to utilize your spare anymore in the case that you should actually need it, because it will be off. You'll have one corner of your truck sitting up or down or whatever, because the spare tire is obviously a smaller diameter than those bigger tires that you have as the aftermarkets. Now, probably not a huge deal if you're, you know, near somewhere, you can put the spare on, limp off at a lower speed to where you need to go to have your tire fixed. But still, it's not something that you would leave the spare on like you might if you had the right size. So that means there's more expense, because what you really should do is go ahead and invest in a fifth aftermarket tire, which is going to cost you probably, if you have the aftermarket wheels and the bigger tire, somewhere around the $400 to $500 mark, maybe even more if you've gone with something a little bit higher up or more expensive. The other thing is, does it fit underneath? You know, you have the spare tire mounted underneath the truck, right? Now, fortunately, Jeep has allowed for a bit of a bigger spare tire under there, but I know people go nuts. Sometimes they put much bigger tires on. So don't be surprised if you go with something huge that you're not going to be able to mount it underneath the truck, at least without some modification. I ran into that problem with my Toyota Tacoma, my previous Tacoma. It has, or had, 33s on it. I had gone to 33s. And when I went to mount the spare underneath, it didn't fit because it has these little arms that come down that kind of push up against the tire. I had to take a sledgehammer and kind of beat those out a little bit to open up that gap so that my spare tire would fit underneath the truck. Something I don't think I really considered to begin with, and Toyota doesn't give you any leeway or any extra room to be able to put a larger spare underneath. Now, next up, there is something I just discovered recently, and that is that larger tires rather, seem to lose air more quickly. I jumped in my Jeep Gladiator this morning, and we had a temperature drop. 61 degrees now. It was 59 when I took off. Yesterday, it was probably in the mid-70s, so not severe, but still about a 10 degree, 12 degree temperature drop, something like that. And I lost tire pressure. When I jumped in this morning, I was 4 pounds low, both tires on the driver's side, 3 pounds low, both tires on the passenger side. Now, I know this because I'm a stickler for it, and I'm always checking, paying attention to the gauges, making sure that the tires are right, and that I don't have a leak or maybe a flat or something crazy. But I did lose a substantial amount of pressure in these tires. I don't remember having such a large problem before with just the stock tires. Now, every tire is going to lose tire pressure when the atmospheric conditions change. When a big pressure system goes through, or when the temperature changes drastically like it did last night. But not as severe. I don't remember ever losing 3, 4, 5 pounds in a tire overnight. And certainly I don't have nails in every tire and consistently so that they lost the same amount on each one. But I don't remember ever having that problem. So something else to be aware of. You're going to have to pay more attention to those tires and keep them inflated if that concerns you. And it should, because obviously that affects gas mileage, wear on the tire, road feel, handling. I mean, you need to keep the tires where they're supposed to be. Lastly, of course, is the cost. You know, I think a modest upgrade, that would be wheels and tires, and that's going with something like a 285/70 R17. It's going to cost you somewhere in the $2,300 to $2,500 range. That's at a place like a Discount Tire, something like that. I've done it a few times on a few different vehicles, and the pricing always seems to come in pretty much the same, and that's in that $2,300 to $2,500 range. So they're going to be more expensive. And if you ever have to replace one, chances of finding the exact setup that you need are probably a little bit slimmer, because a lot of the places I'm finding don't keep many sizes in stock. And if you damage your wheel, you're probably looking at a few days. Anyway, I just wanted to get on, kind of talk about a few things to be aware of if you've gone or are thinking about going to a bigger tire setup, a different wheel on your Jeep Gladiator. Just a couple of things to consider. Leave a comment, let me know. On the air pressures, do you find that you have to add air to the tires more often? I'd be curious to know. Also, real quick, I do have 2 additional channels. Rob Motive, all about my 2021 Toyota Tacoma, and Rob Motive FST, all about my 2021 Toyota Tundra. Check them out, and if you're interested, please consider subscribing. Don't forget to click that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any upcoming videos. And do me a favor, smash that subscribe button on the way out. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.